Welcome to the Night and Runs podcast. On our second episode today, I'm really excited to bring on my guest, Dr. Bryan Kent. Bryan Kent is a native of Rochester, New York, was a D3 collegiate athlete in cross country and track and field. In 2009, he competed in the Amateur Triathlon World Championships in Australia. And I met Bryan in Boston through the running community, where he's recently started his own company, Forward Spine and Sport. Bryan is a doctor of chiropractic and a licensed acupuncturist, and believes that if you move, you're an athlete. That's something that I tell to my athletes all the time. As soon as you tell yourself that you're an athlete and make that decision, you become one. Bryan's someone who I wanted to bring on the show because of all the great work he does in Boston. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped to be here. And the timing couldn't be more perfect. The radiator just stopped hissing. So I think we're eliminating background noise too. So there you go.
Awesome. Great. Well, this is the second ever episode of the Night and Runs podcast, and we are learning as we go. But I love to hear your story. I'm glad we were able to make this work. You know, I don't know a ton about your background in running. I know you ran in college. What was that like? I wasn't a collegiate athlete. I actually came to the sport in my adult life. And I feel like you probably have a pretty different perspective on it than I do.
Yeah, running, I feel like my running journey has kind of been all over the place. And at sometimes, the goal was to be a professional athlete. And then other times the kind of now the goal is just to kind of get out the door and move because it feels good, and move because running, brings me joy for the most part. I think when you kind of decondition and detrain, which is kind of what the past year has really felt like, starting a business and getting a dog, COVID, 4 miles doesn't feel like it used to. And so yeah, running in college though was great. I ran D3. It wasn't anything spectacular or outstanding. Like, I wasn't putting up times that was going to prep me to go pro as a runner or anything like that. But I knew I wanted to run in college since I was probably like 13 or 12 when I started running. And so, when I got the opportunity to run in college, I totally jumped at it, and I ran 3 seasons across country, 3 seasons of track and field, and like 2 seasons of indoor because of injury and things like that. But my first year of college, I didn't even go to a traditional college, so I didn't use all 4 years of eligibility. But it was, I wish I could say it was like the best time of my life, but it was actually probably one of the harder times of my life. College, I really struggled with depression and an eating disorder kind of at the same time. So I think my growth in college was some of the fastest and most kind of influential growth I had as a very young adult. I was 19, 20. Feels so long ago. I'm only 35, but it literally feels like 2 lifetimes ago. It's sometimes hard to imagine going back there. And I put a ton of pressure on myself to race in college. I've always been a dreamer. I've always been someone who sets goals that to some extent are unrealistic. And I most of the time could live up to the goal to some extent. But what I think going into my junior year, my goal was to make it to collegiate cross country nationals. And the year before, so to go to nationals, I don't remember exactly what place I needed to get as an individual, but it definitely would have been like top 10 or 12 at the regional. And I think the year before I was like 155th, something like that. And so like going from a mid packer to someone who goes to nationals was like pretty crazy. And that summer I like laid out a plan. I met with my coach and I was like, okay, I'm going to go from a guy who ran, 50, 60 miles a week to 80, 90. And then eventually by the time I hit the season, I was at 100 miles a week. I was doing doubles. I was easily the fittest I had ever been. And that year, very classic in college, you do like a time trial first week of practice just to be like, hey, where's everybody at? And we would do a 2 mile. The year before I was like 6th man on the team, 7th man on the team. Boy, really, I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I recall just running out of my mind in that time trial. And I went from being like a 10-10 2 miler to like a 9:35 2 miler over a summer. But I had also lost like 20 pounds. I was grossly underweight. I was very depressed. But running was like the only thing that kind of kept me even. And that was like the dangerous part for me, because running was like a means of control, and then food became a means of control. And they really just like spiraled very quickly out of control. So I was running the fastest I ever had, but it was so unsustainable. And I very quickly after that had a season-ending injury. I couldn't walk. Looking back, so if it's funny, if I had known what I know now, I would have been able to treat what I had. But because I didn't, I don't know what I don't know, I had what a lot of people would call IT band, friction syndrome, which we now know is not actually a thing. It's not like a snapping of the, distal iliotibial band insertion at the knee. It doesn't snap and it doesn't move. It's not supposed to move. That's why. So what I had then was actually a nerve issue. And for whatever reason, so I had screaming, lightning like pain at my knee for like 2 months. Like I didn't bend my knee into past 20 degrees of knee flexion for.
Wow. So you were totally weighed out.
Yeah. I went from running 100, 105, 110 miles a week to like not being able to walk. It was brutal. And then, very shortly after that, I had kind of my darkest hours, so to speak, in college. And that's when I started doing therapy and taking antidepressants. And it was really like a very formative experience, but I'm in a way, I'm so glad it happened because I found therapy and, I found help for my eating disorder. So it was a good thing to happen in the end once the really hard and scary part was over, of like admitting that I really needed help and that I was not in a good place. So it was like a great experience that, I think for a lot of us, running can be a very love-hate thing.
Yeah, totally.
And for me in college, it was very love-hate, but I eventually was able to kind of figure out balance. And I think like literally ever since I've been just trying to find balance in life. And it's not something I come to very easy. I have a very like all or nothing personality. That's just the way I look at every challenge. I don't find myself to be particularly gifted in any one area except determination. And I think that's really a product of how I was raised. And I have the best parents in the world, and they were always insanely supportive, but they also were like, the thing that will serve you best in life is hard work, period. And that was just a lesson that I grew up learning. And every kind of task from a young age, again, I wasn't particularly the smartest, the fastest, the strongest, or any of those things, but I found that I could outwork people at a really young age because nobody wanted to work that hard at a lot of stuff. And I had no problem working hard at stuff. And that can be such a blessing and such a curse because to an extent, like I sometimes become obsessed with whatever I'm kind of going towards, not in a way that's like dangerous to myself or others, but in a way that's like very enveloping. And running and sport for the most part has been that for me. And so it's been a hard balance to kind of learn that, you know?
Yeah, I hear you in your story there. I felt a lot of parallels in my own life and approach to sport and how I live my life. I never ran in college, but the thing that I love so much about running, and it's also sort of a love-hate, is it does give such purpose and such sense of control over your life, and what can sometimes feel like a world where, you know, you have to go to work, you have to do these things that you may not want to do, you know, you may have all these obligations. Running is something that you can totally control, and what you get out of it is more or less directly related, is a direct output of what you put into it, right? So, but that can backfire if you go too far. And and I've felt that too. Like, I've always had the drive to run a ton, you know, push it up to 80, 90 miles a week. But I really noticed that when I start going past like 75 miles a week, it's just not really sustainable for me, or I haven't found a way to balance that much running with the rest of my life. Like, I start going crazy trying to run that much, and like I take it out on all the other aspects of my life. And finding that balance there is both something I love, but also, struggle with. So it's, but I think pretty amazing you were able to go so deep into running in your collegiate career when you made that decision, and you saw such huge improvement. But then also that, like, when you were injured, it seems like rather than have that outcome negatively impact you, it seems like you really turned around in a positive light and used it as an opportunity to, you know, grow in other ways that you were talking about there. So many runners, if they get injured, it's just like, if they don't have anything else to turn to, it can be bad.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that is, I don't want to say there's any downsides of running and training and doing these things, but I think it's like a super quick, slippery slope. And I think, like you said, running really seems to give people a lot of purpose and a lot of identity. And it allows people who may not have had a lot of success in other areas of their lives, or the feeling of success, right? Like, there's nothing quite as like finite and acutely gratifying as crossing a finish line.
Absolutely.
Right? It's proverbial, but it's physical. You know what I mean? You looked at something that you said, I don't think I can do this, or you had people in your life who said, you can't do this, and you said, I can. And maybe for some people, that's like the first time they've ever done that. And that's like a life-changing moment.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes running so unique, is that, in my humble opinion, if you want to do it, you can do it. And I think, you know, access to sport is a really complicated thing. And I think, we as a running community need to continue to support open access to sport and open access to racing. Because as far as like access, it's the lowest barrier. And at the same time, you need to buy sneakers. You need safe places to run. You don't have to join a team, but you gotta like have access to kind of the know-how and the education. It's really great to have access to healthcare when you're a runner, especially if you're a new runner. Like, there's going to be bumps in the road. I don't want to say it's unavoidable, but it's very common.
Oh yeah. I mean, more than half of runners get some kind of an injury every year.
Yeah. I don't know what the statistic is, but it is a terrifying statistic. It's a great statistic for me as a clinician, because it means that runners need care. But it is very interesting to me, the injury rate of running. It's incredibly high.
Yeah. Yeah, I deal with it on the coaching end. I mean, it's a combination of factors. It's highly motivated people pushing themselves to their breaking point.
Yeah.
But it's also overly ambitious people getting too deep into the water before they're ready to swim. Those are the two things that I see.
Yeah. The idea of like a couch to marathon, I don't think it's undoable, but I think it takes some pretty outstanding genetics to take someone who maybe doesn't have an athletic background, or maybe who does, but has kind of like gone away from sport, whether they got very invested in career, family, life. And then they're like, you know what, I want to do this. And then I don't mean to say this to like discourage people from doing this, but there are physical limitations on how quickly the body can adapt. And there are limitations on what your tissues can tolerate, and so I don't discourage it. And I would say, if you're going to do that, get a coach, have them help you make decisions or make decisions for you. And within that realm, having like a healthcare team, people who can say, this is an okay pain, this is not an okay pain, I think is really critical. Not to like sell myself at all, but like anyone you trust who has, a strong knowledge of anatomy and physiology, and can be a strong guide for you, I think is really important.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I tell people all the time who I'm working with that it's really hard to see past your own biases. And it's so hard to, first off, it's really hard to coach yourself in any way. Plenty of people do it. I'm actually currently coaching myself, thinking I should get a coach soon, but it's so hard because it's just helpful to have an outsider who's looking at you in a fair, non-judgmental way, who really has your best interests in mind. And whether that's with shaping your training, which, every collegiate and pro athlete gets a coach because of that reason, or healthcare professionals. Like right now I'm dealing with a little thing with my hamstring. I have no idea what's going on, and I can think I know, but I don't know. And it's just so valuable to have a team like you, Bryan, to refer folks to when they're dealing with any kind of pain or injury. So I'd really be interested to hear, I know we were talking a bit about your running in college, but how did you get into performing chiropractic care and ultimately deciding to start your own practice?
Yeah, this is like very common. It's like, what's your chiropractic story? And I think people hear chiropractor, they have a very specific connotation most of the time of like what that person does. And I had the same connotation the first time someone told me to go see a chiropractor, because I had a lot of injury in high school and in early college. It was basically every season the same injury would pop up. And so it was what I now know is medial tibial stress syndrome. People often call them shin splints, or a tibialis posterior tendonitis, tendinopathy, whatever. And it happened every single season. And it was like a huge barrier for me to get over. And I tried everything. I had, multiple pairs of orthotics. I saw multiple physical therapists. And that's not to say that physical therapy doesn't work at all. I know a lot of brilliant physical therapists who I work with, refer to, who probably would have been able to help me, but for whatever reason, my experience, it wasn't fruitful. I was like a really early adopter of something called cold laser therapy or laser therapy, which is now very common in chiropractic offices, physical therapy, and even in the medical world. More medical world. I'm in the medical world, but more established large medicine. That didn't work. And so I finally just kind of was like resigned to the fact that like this was either going to be my life or I was going to have to figure this out on my own. And then I had a coach in college who finally was like, you should go see this chiropractor. And I literally said what everybody says. I was like, my back is fine. There's nothing wrong with my back. And my coach was like, no, this guy, like, he doesn't do backs. He does soft tissue injuries. And I was like, huh, okay. And I went and saw this guy, and he was great. He's in Webster, New York, Rochester, New York now. His name's Dr. Mike Reinhardt. If this podcast makes it to Rochester somehow, go see him. He's the best.
I hope it does.
Still a friend, colleague, and mentor. We stay connected, but he saw me 3 times over maybe 2 weeks. And then I started running again, and I was pain-free. And he saw me a handful more times, and I was able to get through the next race season pain-free. And it was like, blew my mind. And to the point where he became just like pivotal in me finishing college, basically injury-free. And then when I knew I was going to move to California and try and kind of make it as a professional triathlete, literally before I had a place to live, I had found a chiropractor who I was going to work with, because I, in a way that I see now, is maybe a little too dependent on their care, and I should have been a little more proactive with my rehab and things like that. But they both did a lot of manual therapy, a named technique called active release technique, or ART. A lot of people are very familiar with it. And that was really helpful for me, but I think it would have been more helpful, more sustainable had I listened to them when they gave me rehab exercises and homework exercises and actually done them.
Yeah.
But instead, I was there, once a week all the time. And to their credit, they continued to say, "Are you doing your exercises?" And I'd be like, "No, because you're going to just, you keep me moving anyways. And I don't have time for that," which was the wrong attitude. And now, so I have a lot of empathy for my patients when I'm like, "Hey, did you do your rehab?" And they're like, kinda. Like, I get it. But we have a rehab-based practice now where we focus on the things that empower our patients to understand what's going on and really fix themselves. Like, I still do manual techniques. I'm an acupuncturist. I do cupping. I'm constantly finding new ways to use my hands and tools to help people. But the evidence in the scientific literature is very clear that rehabilitative exercise has better outcomes versus just manual therapy alone, just spinal manipulation alone, which is classically what chiropractors do. And so when you take all those things and then you teach people about their bodies and about their injury, the outcomes are they're phenomenal. They're just so much better than just doing manual therapy alone.
Yeah, I love that. So many of the athletes who I coach have this mentality that they need to do more and more and more and keep pushing with their running, and that they got to go faster and longer. And what I always tell folks is, for most amateur athletes, I'm firmly in belief that it's not you don't push hard enough in workouts, it's that you don't rest hard enough and do the proper recovery between those workouts. That's the main limiting factor. And prehab type exercises, maintaining any kind of small injury, if you can get on that before it becomes something that's going to really take you out. Really just getting good basic things, good sleep, proper nutrition, putting your feet up and resting, and doing all that stuff between the running, I think is so important. And it's been really helpful for me to get to know you and many of the other folks in the Boston area, because the expertise that you guys have is just invaluable at times.
Yeah, it's really unique to be kind of on the other side now, because your last question was, how did I become a chiropractor? So I kind of played my hand at being a professional triathlete. I never made it. I was good. I got to race for Team USA as an amateur, which was, 100% the highlight of my athletic career. Like, even as an amateur, like, there's nothing cooler than like having USA across your chest and traveling internationally and being a part of that, international.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Representing the country as the team.
Oh, it was bananas. And I was like, I thought, that was kind of my first step was, okay, first year as a triathlete, make Team USA. Second year as a triathlete, get your pro card. And then once the pro card hits, okay, I'll spend the next like 5 years really cultivating that speed and that endurance. And I learned super quickly that like a lot of factors have to line up for that to happen. You have to have great training, but probably more important, great training is so complicated. It's really the right training at the right time, at the right volume and intensity for that person. And then you have to adapt, meaning you have to rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like
and living a busy life as an adult, maybe with a full-time job, maybe with family responsibilities, it's a challenge. I think especially the amateur athletes like me and you who are very dedicated to the sport, we like to idolize our heroes in the sport and want to try to emulate them. But there's a lot of aspects of their lifestyle that just doesn't really work when you're a professional adult trying to keep down a job or start a business, and you're not just able to necessarily lay down for 3 hours in the middle of the day, take a nap and just chill.
So I mean, all things considered, like the cards are not always evenly stacked, you know what I mean? And I think I'm super grateful I had that experience. And I think it has really informed me as a clinician and someone who treats runners and triathletes, and CrossFit rowers. If you play sports, I'm not going to say I'm the best or I'm an expert, but I think if you give me a shot, I really like my patients to kind of educate me on their sport and show me what they do so I can watch them move. And then I can go to the literature, I can go to resources and say, hey, what's this person missing? But I lost my train of thought entirely.
You were talking about all the different cool sports that you've helped people out.
So I think after kind of having that experience of trying to go pro, like I've really developed, I think, a lot of empathy for every type of athlete, right? All the way from professional to like first time runner. And because I've been a first time runner, it was a long time ago. I was like 12 years old, but I do remember kind of those early years, and I've kind of gone as close as I can to pro. And then I quickly realized after working with professional athletes, training for an Olympic year, it's a lot of pressure, and I try and empathize with it, but I don't understand it, you know what I mean? And so it's, always growing and always trying to learn from my patients, because I think it really is such a two-way street. My patients, it's always my goal that my patients really learn from me and from my business partner. But every patient teaches me something. And I think that's the most helpful thing I think I can offer patients is like years of experience, but also hundreds upon thousands of unique injury cases that, yes, technically present as X, call it plantar fasciitis, but it's like nobody is textbook. And because, you just saying, oh, I have pain on the bottom of my foot. Like, yeah, I've seen a lot of people with pain on the bottom of their foot and none of them had an inflamed plantar fascia. So I think that's what's really unique about the experience is that I never take a single patient at face value, meaning if you have pain on the bottom of your foot, I'm thinking about plantar fasciitis last. And so I think that's what's kind of cool about working with coaches and with athletes is that we can all kind of have a unique approach to everyone's care and say, what do you actually need here? What is the real problem here? Not just where does it hurt,
Yeah, I love that. I think that there's these common runner injuries that every runner has heard of, whether it's, shin splints, plantar fasciitis, IT band syndrome, stress fracture, right? And we probably lump so many different things into those categories that could be, you know, you're the expert here, not me, but what we think is a stress fracture could be like 10 different things, right? And
Yeah.
when we come saying we think we have something, it could be totally different.
Yeah, I think it's always helpful to really understand where my patients are coming from and what they think is happening, because I think what happens, a lot of people get annoyed when people go to like self-diagnose and they go to Google and they look up their symptoms, or they end up on like a message board or something like that. But I think it's really helpful because, so, you know, especially when in the running community, people kind of share their story of what they went through, and they can say, yes, that's what's happening to me, that type of pain at this, you know, moment in the run or at this time of the day. And that tells me so much about what's going on in their body. And then I can take that information and do an assessment and say, okay, let's kind of start checking the boxes here to see what's actually wrong here. Just because it hurts a certain way in a certain location at a certain time does not give you a diagnosis. You know what I mean? And finding the root of the pain is one thing, but then finding the root of the problem is the next thing. And I think that's where we try and go, is like we try and treat your pain, and treating pain in and of itself, I don't want to say is easy, but generally speaking, the body will tell you what it needs. It's going the next layer, right? Why does it hurt in this spot? That's usually a symptom of something greater, and finding that and treating that is, I think, much more difficult.
Yeah, I hear that for sure. So you recently did start your own practice. Has it been a year yet?
Well, so we had, you know, COVID was really interesting. Because of COVID, we didn't really open right away. So around April of last year was when things kind of started. And so we didn't see our first patient until June. So our 1 year anniversary of seeing patients would be June. So we're like 8 months into this. We're still infants.
Nice. Is it crazy? Is every day like a roller coaster?
It kind of depends. I think it comes in waves. You know, honestly, like opening, like the first 2 months, 3 months were actually like less stressful than it is now. Because sometimes I think COVID has like taught us a lot about business, but also about people and about human nature. And, but it's also left so many question marks of like predictability. You know, as our business model is like people in the door, right? And, you know, people in the door is what pays the bills. And the problem that we think is a good problem to have is that we like to get our patients better as fast as possible. You know what I mean? And in some cases, for spine pain, for running injuries, I'll see people 2 times and they are in a place where they can sustain and treat themselves, which I'm very proud of, and also is a really difficult business model because you don't have a repeat customer who you can rely on for the next 20, 30 weeks while you grow. So if you're discharging patients faster than they're coming in the door, you don't grow as fast. And then add COVID, which, you know, people aren't racing. And I think racing lends itself, and I don't only treat runners, but I do find myself in that niche very often of seeing runners.
That's how I got to know you.
Yeah, exactly. And I love treating runners. I really do. I identify as a runner. I think I understand the anxieties and the desires and the goals. I think I really understand what that feels like on, you know, like I said, like a lot of levels. And so I think I'm pretty good at treating runners. I know in 5 years, I'll look back on what I'm doing now and be like, yeah, you're better now. Like you learned a lot in the last 5 years.
Absolutely.
But like right now I'm as good as I think I can be for this moment. And I'll, continue to learn as much as I can every day, every week, every year, so that I just continue to offer better and better care for my patients. But yeah, so now that we're 8 months in, it's kind of the newness of it has worn off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think COVID's been really hard. Like we can't make a really solid prediction what the next month is going to look like. And so, sometimes you're like, hey, we're good. We're sailing. Like we're growing. And then like, you'll just have a week out of nowhere where you're like, man, where did everybody go? Like,
Yeah.
we saw so many more people last week, and like, so trending is very difficult. But yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I'm super pumped, and I'm grateful to my business partner, who's my best friend from grad school. He's not only like a brilliant clinician, but he's such a steady hand. He's very calm and cool and collected, and I am very anxious and emotional to a point where it like gets in the way. And so something will happen, and I'll send him a text, or we're in the office together, and he just kind of helps me keep an even head about these things, because that's his personality. And so we have a really great balance, and we have just a lot of fun at the office. It's really great.
That's awesome. I know that all the hard work you've been putting in and all the awesome content that you've been spitting out to the world is really gonna pay off sooner or later. It's been about 2 years since I started Night and Runs and started coaching athletes as well. And working through COVID, it's been a little unpredictable on my end as well. It's been a big inspiration for me to talk with other business owners, whether that's kind of within line of work that I'm doing, or really any new business owners, because what I'm learning, and I kind of love, but it's also a huge challenge, is that, right, I'm a coach, you're a chiropractor and acupuncturist, but once you become the business owner, there's so much more you have to be than just that. And the number of skills you need to learn and the number of things you need to become proficient in is both overwhelming, but also, for me, really exciting. I feel like the amount of growth that I've personally brought upon myself, like in my own skill set and what I'm able to do now compared to just a few years ago before starting this, is really pretty amazing. And I love that. It's a wild ride, but it's exciting, and it makes me feel alive. And and that's kind of a big reason why I wanted to bring you onto this show as well, is to acknowledge that it's really impressive what you're doing, especially during this challenging past year. And it definitely doesn't go unnoticed. You put out so much good stuff on your Instagram and elsewhere online. I think that, we're watering the seeds for a pretty amazing second half of 2021 and 2022, as running kind of returns back to the way that it was. I'm already seeing upswelling in my own set of athletes now, and community, people reaching out to me kind of like they haven't in over a year, getting excited about doing racing again.
Yeah.
And well, hopefully they won't develop any injuries under my coaching, but as people start racing again too, they'll be pushing their limits and kind of building that funnel that leads to your great care too. So
I think, well, I appreciate the props and the kudos. I think that the thing that I've learned the most, and the thing that I struggle with the most, is like really being like present in, because in the moment and in the different hats that I have to wear. Because I think as a clinician, I have this like tendency to try and like read every person who comes in my practice and figure out what they need from a physical level, emotional level, what they need to hear from me, what they need to learn. And usually by the end of the day, every day, I feel like I've pretty much given away all that I can on that day. And then I have other things to do. You know what I mean? I have content to try and create, notes to write. Right now it's like tax season, so I'm doing like tax document preparation. Thank God I have an accountant. Like, but even still, there's lots to do, and it's challenging to like really stay present for me in the like, hey, we started a business in the worst possible time. Like we reached out to some friends who own their own practices, and I kid you not, every single one of them said, don't do it. Like, do not start a practice. Right? That's like the dumbest thing you could do. And our answer to all of them was, too late. We already did it. And
love that.
And I think, there was like a total freak out moment. Like, oh man, this is crazy. You know what I mean? And I thankfully, I had enough people who really supported me in the Boston community, and who really like were really digging what I was trying to do, what my business partner and I were trying to do, and really liked the type of care that I provided. We stepped off the cliff, and, we had a parachute, and I literally couldn't be more grateful to the Boston community for, in a way, kind of like taking a chance on me. I'm still relatively new to Boston. I've been here over so I guess not new, but I've been here 3 years-ish, 3+. And I've just made some really great friendships, and, the relationships I have with my patients, I'm so grateful for. And people like you know what I mean? Like, I saw that you had, started your own business. We run for the same group, the Heartbreakers. And I was like, hey, Chris, I see that you're coaching. Like, let's talk, let's meet. I'm really interested in what you do. And I want to learn how you help people. And here we are,
Yeah. I love that. One of the things that I like about being a coach for the past couple of years, and a big reason why I wanted to start this podcast, is just to kind of force myself to get out there and meet people and really build my network, because it's so easy to just kind of, for me anyway, get stuck doing my own thing. I tend to run usually by myself. I just moved to a new state, and
I know, man.
Haven't thank you. Yeah. Moved to Rhode Island, and hopefully we'll meet the running community here soon, but haven't done that yet. And yeah, starting this podcast, I hope to have, kind of a fun platform to have these conversations, get to know folks, and share the message of what they're doing. So really, really appreciative you came on the show.
Grateful to be here, my friend. I think running, as a whole, has brought me so many different things, and that's how I ended up becoming a chiropractor. If I didn't have running, I wouldn't be here where I am today having this conversation. So it is very cool to how something so simple can like do so many different things for so many different people, and bring people from all different walks of life together. And I think that's where I'm like most interested in running right now. And what makes me most excited to be a runner and do what I do professionally, is bringing people to something that could really be such a value add to their life, and being a part of a community that is different than, what I grew up in. And I'm really excited to kind of see what happens. Like you said, we're we're planting seeds for the next year or so. I'm really excited to see where the forward spine and sport community goes, and I'm just really excited to continue meeting people in the community and trying to grow.
I love that. Yeah. One of my athletes ran a 5K today and set a new PR. So yeah, I'm super psyched. She's heading towards her first BQ.
That's great.
Races are happening. So
I feel like I've seen, I feel like I've seen so many of your athletes running personal best. That's gotta feel like really good for you, right? Is that cool. The highest goal?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, when you set a PR, you're the best you've ever been, right? At least from a performance perspective. You've never been that fast before.
Yeah.
I'm 32, and it's like if I get a PR, it's like, wow, this is the best shape I've ever been in my life. That's pretty cool.
Are you in the best shape you've ever been in right now?
I'd like to think I'm close. I'm training for the Newport Marathon in April on the 17th, so a little under 2 months away. Yeah, it's scary.
Taper time in 4 weeks.
It's scary. I would like to try to set a very big PR. I think I'm in the fitness to do that, but man, the marathon is just so long. It's scary, and
you really don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know. The pace is scary. Every time I try to go out to run it, I'm like, oh man, like
I'm going to put you on the spot. What's the pace?
So my goal would be to break 240 in the marathon, which is, I think, 6:05 pace. And
that's smoking.
It's scary. It's scary. When I was trying to break 3, the pace for that was 6:40 or 6:50 or something. That didn't feel that scary, even though I was in like, the right fitness to do it. Now I'm in the right fitness to maybe break 240, and the pace just terrifies me. I don't know why. It just feels much faster. So one thing I'm trying to do this training block is just a ton of running at marathon pace to become comfortable with it, and doing a lot, just like a little bit faster than marathon pace, but like really trying to get comfortable in what it feels like to run that speed, So hopefully it all comes together. I've had a few good training runs. Most of my training runs have been good.
Good. Are you familiar with the Hanson's running program?
Yeah. That's actually been a pretty big inspiration on my own coaching within the past year or so. And I read their book. I was just like, wow, this makes so much sense.
I feel like they have some really great specific like theories and whatnot. And one of them I'm sure you're familiar with is 26 kilometers at race pace.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 weeks out. So instead of 26 miles, you do 26K, which ends up being
about 16 miles.
Exactly.
Yep.
And in their minds, that is a very good predictor.
The metric marathon. I think I've heard of it called before. Yeah. So I've done up to 10 miles so far at my goal pace. And I think I will probably try to do about 16 in my peak week. It's scary though. It never gets racing never gets easier. You just get faster, as they say.
It is ironic because I've like my running's kind of been all over the place for years, and I used to run significantly faster than I do now. And yet still when I race, it feels about the same and I'm going slower. And when I was faster, I remember thinking at some point, this has got to get a little easier. And it doesn't. You're just faster at your hardest effort, for whatever race. So I really admire kind of the professionals who can just like put up with that. Like it's hard to do that. And the seasoned runner who races all the time, like I think you have to be really a little bit hard to like wanna push that hard. Like I remember trying to get back into more racing over the past 2 years and running 5Ks and 10Ks and halves. And I ran my last hard 5K virtually last summer, and I ran the best I've run in years. And afterwards I was like, that was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can do that for another couple months.
Yeah.
And I haven't since. It took a lot out of me. It was really interesting.
Yeah, totally. You need to be able to have a big appetite for pain. That's for sure. I like to think that I'm a pretty soft runner, and I've gotten a lot of my fitness gains just through, going out and jogging a ton, right? Like I'm always telling my athletes to slow down, run easy, don't push the pace and stuff. But sometimes I'm like, do I do that too much? Maybe I'm just kind of a wimp, and I don't like the hard stuff.
No, from the clinical aspect, clinically, the thing I see the most is people doing the really flashy workouts too soon, too often, and too hard. So I really am on your team there, and I do think, at least clinically, I don't know what the latest in exercise physiology research says, but the most often I start to see athletes, a marathon plan is a really good example. If you're a new runner, I will start to see like first time marathoners, the second they start running over 12 miles.
Yeah.
That seems to be a number. 12 to 15 is when I will start to see kind of the newbie, first time, second time marathoner.
Yep. You're probably getting close to 2-hour runs there for a lot of them.
And then I think if you're a more seasoned runner, I will start to see them 4 weeks or so after they start doing speed workouts, especially if they're doing more than one a week.
Yeah.
Where they're like, okay, I do long run Saturday, I do track Tuesday, I do tempo Thursday. In my head, I'm like, when are you resting? When are you getting adaptation from these workouts? Like, I don't have a specific, I don't coach, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a lot. It's a lot to do.
I think
for the average person.
I think we fall into the trap of trying to kind of like train like the pros to some extent, but we forget that many of them have somewhere between 10 and 20 years of consistent running under their legs.
Absolutely.
And so they can do 2 track workouts a week, and that's normal.
Yep.
But I mean, for me, especially since, kind of stepping away from the sport and trying to come back, I tried to train for a marathon last year, and it would have been my first marathon. And I was doing some sort of like long run, hills, and then like a tempo type or like cruise intervals. And I got like 16 weeks into the plan, and I felt terrible. I just didn't have the fitness,
Yeah. It's hard to run hard. I mean, I love just base building. Just me. It's just go run easy. That's what I love to do. It's my favorite kind of run. And sometimes as a coach, I'm like, oh, well, if I just give people easy runs all the time, they're going to get bored. But it's like, that's, for me, I feel like that gets you like 80% of the way there. And then you're strong, you can run far, it's comfortable for you. And then you just put the little bit of spice in to get you right to that next level.
Yeah. And also from an injury. So I think people are always like, how can I prevent injury? Do less. I'm not saying don't run, but like exactly what you're saying, just like spend a lot of time easy running. Let your tissues get so used to the pounding that it's not a big deal to run 6 days a week. I don't necessarily think everybody should run 6 days a week. I don't even know if people should run 5 days a week. I think everyone is different, and that's where you come in.
Yeah.
But I think most people do not have enough time and enough miles and enough hours doing the basic boring running to say, okay, now I'm going to start doing track. You know what I mean? Start doing tempo or even long run.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm definitely ascribing to the night and runs philosophy.
Yeah. You know, before I got into running, I was actually a big hiker and cyclist.
I knew this about you actually. You've done some like through hikes and some FKTs and like you
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to, so I did long distance cycling, right? So I would do like century rides, double
yeah,
centuries, that kind of thing. I really like just like these kind of ultra distance cycling
yeah,
adventures and a lot of touring, just, you know, going out and having fun with friends
yeah.
and exploring New England. I've ridden really all over and love that. It was fun. I was also, I got into hiking and I went on two kind of half-year long adventures. I hiked two of the major long distance trails in the US. And this was before I was a runner. I did the Appalachian Trail, and then a few years later did the Pacific
PCT.
Crest Trail.
Yeah.
And what, you know, without getting too much into that, I wasn't a runner then, but I feel like just hiking those thousands and thousands of miles gave me some of that like base conditioning and strength that when I then started running, I feel very lucky. I've actually never had a serious running injury. And I think I had a weird path to get to running, but all that hiking and those months and months of it made me strong so that then I could just kind of jump right into a training plan. And I think a lot of folks, well, obviously don't have that background
Right.
and emphasizes kind of the importance of building up and taking it slow
Yeah.
before you really go off the deep end with crazy hard training plans.
Right. But also then to your credit, I think there's a lesson to be learned in consistency. That is another way to prevent injury is that you are consistently growing at a very small rate. You
Yeah,
know, I think
absolutely.
we've all heard the 10% rule, and
Yep.
I think the 10% rule doesn't work for 90% of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just too much growth. Like when you're, your first week of training, 10%, not that big of a deal. But when you start
Yeah.
getting into these big volume weeks, like you could be adding 10 miles a week, which
Yeah.
is a lot. And so I think to your credit, like consistency, that, so
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be learned there. And I think you have a lot of wisdom to share on that front. So.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'd rather see somebody run 2 miles a day, 4 or 5 days a week, and just build that habit and that framework that they can expand upon
Yep.
than, you know, go out and crush a 8 mile run and then have to take like 3 days off before their next run and then go crush another 8 mile run.
Exactly. I'm with you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, where can folks learn more about you? And
our Instagram, we really like to post rehab and injury prevention stuff there. And so our Instagram is Forward Spine and Sport. And my personal Instagram, I still use, but I post more pictures of my dog than I do rehab there now. But if you're interested in golden retrievers and running and other sports and lifting weights, you can find me at just my name, BryanKent, Bryan Kent. My business partner as well. His Instagram is Steve Lasky.
awesome. Yeah. And I'll put links to those in the notes for this show so people can check you out. I really love all the videos that you post on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm really I'm really recently very interested in the diaphragm and the core, and it's really funny. I think we all pay a lot of lip service to core strength, but it's not about strength. It's like about the function of the core and how your brain functions with your core. Because I mean, with all the running injuries I see, I can trace most, like a gross percentage of them, back to a core that doesn't function well enough. And because from there, you compensate through the hip, you compensate through the shoulder, you compensate through the knee, you compensate through the foot. And people are like, well, what does my core have to do with my big toe? And I'm like, everything. Because if you're not centered, like everything else is a movement based off of a pattern that is less optimal. And so everything up and down the chain of command is less optimal. That's not to say biomechanics causes injury per se. It's a complicated matter. But so yeah, I'm really into core function, not core strength. I find that if you have core function, you already have a strong core. But you can have a really strong core that functions really poorly and actually be detrimental to the way you move and the way you run. So
it's a complicated world. A lot of what you've said today is over my head, not gonna lie. And that's why there's great experts who've spent years studying this like you, Bryan. So anyone in the Boston area, I'd highly recommend you check out Bryan Kent and his practice for spine and sport. I've visited myself, and you've got me on a treadmill and identified some interesting things with my gait and some foot injury stuff that I was dealing with for a while. Thankfully, that has mostly gone away now. So I took some of your tips to heart. I'll say that. I'm really happy you came on the show.
Me too, my man. I'm grateful to be here and to work with you, and for the opportunity.
Well, anytime you got something new you want to talk about, just hit me up. We can bring you back on to chat.
My man.
And that is all for today. All right, that's the episode. Thanks so much for listening. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major listening platforms. So please do, so you won't miss the next episode. That one's going to be coming out soon. You can also follow what we're doing at nightandruns.com and on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Night and Runs. And if you're struggling with your running or just feeling like you're not progressing anymore like you used to, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to talk with you about how your running's going, map out a game plan for what maybe you could be doing differently, and get back on track. As a coach, I just want to help you out, so hit me up. All right, that is the episode. Peace. Bye.